Imagine a city where you can spend the morning inside a world-class museum, walk past the symbols of American power by afternoon, and end the night eating a meal that feels like it belongs to another continent, all without ever needing a car. Washington, D.C. has a way of looking official on postcards, but the real question is it actually fun, livable, and worth your time when the politics fade into the background? Because the truth is, D.C. is not just monuments. It is neighborhoods with their own moods, small rituals that locals swear by, and a daily rhythm shaped by museums that cost nothing, trains that can get you almost everywhere, and a culture that mixes ambition with surprisingly laid-back weekend energy. And once you see the city at sunrise, the Washington Monument reflecting in still water, cyclists gliding through empty paths, it is hard not to feel that pull. Washington, D.C. sits on the Potomac River on the U.S. East Coast, wedged between Maryland and Virginia. It is the capital of the United States, which means it naturally attracts first-time visitors who want to see the big stuff, the U.S. Capitol, the White House area, and the memorials that show up in every movie. But it also attracts people who come for entirely different reasons: students, interns, diplomats, researchers, and professionals who build careers in government, nonprofits, media, universities, and international organizations. That mix is what gives D.C. its identity. In one coffee shop, you might overhear someone debating policy details, and in another, you'll see a student group planning a museum day, because museums here are not a once-a-year activity. They are part of normal life. Many of the city's biggest institutions, especially the Smithsonian museums, are free to enter, which changes what culture feels like in a city. It becomes something you casually drop into, not something you save up for. If you are visiting, the heart of the classic DC experience is the National Mall, and yes, it is worth it. The mall is not one building or one attraction, it's a long, open stretch lined with museums, punctuated by memorials and designed for walking. It is where the city puts its most symbolic face forward. You can start near the U.S. Capitol end and slowly move west, watching the skyline stay low and the space open up until the Lincoln Memorial becomes the anchor at the far end. On that route, you'll pass places people dream about before they even book flights. The Lincoln Memorial is the one everyone recognizes, and it hits hardest early in the morning or late at night when the crowd's thin and the steps feel less like a tourist stage and more like a quiet civic space. The Washington Monument is the city's clean, sharp centerpiece, visible from so many angles that it almost becomes your compass. And then there are the memorials that shift the mood. The World War II Memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, the Korean War Veterans Memorial, each one changing your pace and your tone as you walk. Now here's the part that surprises many visitors. DC can be a premium city without forcing you to pay premium prices for the main sites. Many of the biggest experiences around the mall, monuments, memorials, and major museums can be done for free. The Smithsonian museums, for example, offer free admission, with the exception of one New York location. That means you can spend hours in spaces that would cost a small fortune in other global capitals. A smart way to experience the mall is to mix the emotional weight of the memorials with the curiosity of the museums. One moment you're outside under open sky, the next you're inside with artifacts, art, and history under controlled light and quiet galleries. The National Gallery of Art, the Smithsonian museums, and other institutions turn an ordinary stroll into a full day without you needing to plan every detail.
Beyond the mall, DC starts to show more personality. Georgetown feels older than the rest of the city. Cobblestone energy, historic buildings, waterfront walks, and shopping that ranges from casual boutiques to serious spending. It is one of those places where you can walk around for free, people watch for hours, and then suddenly realize you have stepped into a world of expensive brunches and high-end storefronts. For modern shopping in a polished city luxury vibe, areas like City Center, DC offer sleek design and carefully curated brands. Even if you do not buy anything, it's visually satisfying, and sometimes the atmosphere itself becomes the experience, especially in the evenings when people treat the area as a place to stroll, not just a place to shop. City Center, DC's seasonal displays are also known as a popular photo stop. And then there's U Street, a corridor that feels like it carries music history in the pavement. This is where you go when you want to see the city's nightlife side, hear live music, and feel a faster pulse than the calm openness of the mall. U Street is also where one of DC's most famous foods became part of local identity. Because to understand DC, you cannot only look upward at monuments, you have to look down at what people eat, where they line up, and what they argue is the real local thing. The signature bite that almost every visitor hears about is the half-smoke, a sausage that sits somewhere between a hot dog and something more serious. It's typically smoked before it is grilled, often spicier than a standard hot dog, and commonly served on a soft bun with toppings like onions, cheese, and chili. Even the origin story is debated, which somehow makes it feel even more like a true local classic. Eating it is not elegant, and it's not supposed to be. This is hands-on food, the kind where you immediately understand why people tell you to grab extra napkins. And the most famous place associated with it is Ben's Chili Bowl on U Street, an iconic stop that has become part of the city's cultural map, famous enough that even presidents have been photographed eating there. But DC's food identity doesn't stop at one sausage. The city is international in a way that feels natural rather than staged. One of the biggest examples is Ethiopian food. DC is known for having an especially strong Ethiopian dining scene, and it's one of those experiences that can reset your sense of what local food means. You sit down, share a platter, and eat with injera, that spongy bread that becomes both your utensil and part of the meal. It's communal, warm, and perfect for groups, but also surprisingly comforting even if you're doing it solo. And because DC is a city of neighborhoods, the eating experience changes dramatically depending on where you are and how you want to spend. If you're going budget, you can find casual meals and quick bites that do the job. Food trucks, small counters, simple carry-out spots. The half-smoke from a classic place is often a relatively affordable, iconic meal compared with the cost of sit-down dining in trendier areas. Street-style food and casual takeout will usually keep your day manageable. At the mid-range level, you have the neighborhood restaurants where locals actually go on a regular weeknight. Not cheap, but not special occasion either. This is where you can explore different cuisines, enjoy good service, and still feel like you're in a real city routine.
And then there is luxury DC. Tasting menus, high-end steakhouses, stylish waterfront dining at places like the Wharf, and elegant rooms where the check reminds you that you are in a powerful, expensive city. It is there if you want it, but the nice part is you can also build a great food trip without needing that level of spending. So what does daily life feel like here when you are not on vacation? DC is a walking city in the center, but it is also a transit city. Many people structure their day around metro stations, bus routes, and a kind of corridor living, where you choose neighborhoods based on commute logic. The pace during weekdays can feel intense, especially around downtown and the areas connected to government and office work. People dress like they might be heading to a meeting, even if they are just grabbing lunch. But the city softens after work and on weekends. Parks fill up, trails get busy, museums become casual hangouts, and the mall transforms into something less ceremonial and more local. Joggers, families, people on bikes, tourists mixing with residents who know exactly which path avoids crowds. Transportation is one of DC's strongest lifestyle advantages compared with many American cities. You can do a lot without a car, especially if you live near metro. Fares depend on timing and distance. For Metro Rail, regular fares range from $2.25 up to $6.75 during weekday peak periods, and on weekends or late evenings, it's commonly $2.25 to $2.50. Metro Bus regular routes are $2.25. There are also multi-day passes, like a one-day unlimited pass for $13.50 and a 7-day unlimited pass for $60.75. That said, DC is not a city you describe as cheap, especially when you start talking about housing. The cost of living reality is simple. The city offers access, culture, and career opportunities, and it charges you for them. Rent is the big one. Within DC proper, especially close to the core areas, rent for a one-bedroom can feel high compared with much of the United States. Many people handle this by living with roommates, choosing smaller spaces, or living just outside the city line in nearby Virginia or Maryland and commuting in. If you want a classic walk-to-everything lifestyle, you are usually paying a premium. Food costs depend heavily on your habits. Groceries can be manageable if you cook. Dining out can escalate quickly because DC is full of restaurants that aim for a polished, professional crowd. You can still eat on a budget, but you have to choose intentionally. Transportation costs, compared with car-heavy cities, can be relatively reasonable if you commit to metro and buses. The fare structure and passes make it possible to keep commuting costs predictable, especially with weekly or multi-day options. Daily expenses, coffee, quick lunches, entertainment, can feel like they add up faster than you expect. DC has many free experiences, but it also has plenty of places that gently push you towards spending. Boutique fitness, curated markets, ticketed events, waterfront dining. So, who should visit DC? If you are a first-time traveler who wants a city that feels meaningful, where you can connect places to history, art, and major world events, DC delivers. If you love museums, you will be happy here, and the fact that so many major museums are free changes the whole equation. You can build an expensive-looking trip on a modest budget if you plan around free attractions.
If you are the kind of traveler who prefers chaotic street energy, bargain shopping, and constant late-night buzz, DC can feel quieter than expected. The nightlife exists, but it is not a city that overwhelms you with it the way some global party capitals do. And who should consider living here? If your career connects to government, policy, international affairs, journalism, higher education, research, or nonprofit work, DC can be an incredible base. The city is built around networks and opportunities, and the professional ecosystem is real. If you value culture and access, being able to drop into a museum on a random afternoon or spend weekends walking historic streets and green spaces, DC feels rich in a way that is not only about money. But if you struggle with high rent, or you need a lot of space, or you want a slower, more affordable lifestyle, living in the city center can feel challenging. Many people compromise by living farther out and commuting, which is normal here, but it changes your relationship with the city. Now, let's be balanced. The real advantages of Washington, D.C. are clear. First, the city's world-class sites are not just impressive, many are free. Especially the monuments, memorials, and major museums like the Smithsonian Network. Second, the city is surprisingly navigable without a car, with metro and bus options that cover much of what residents and visitors need, and with clear fare and pass structures. Third, the city has a unique cultural mix. Local traditions like the half-smoke exist alongside international food scenes that make dining here more interesting than people assume. Fourth, DC is visually iconic. Wide avenues, low skylines, grand spaces. It feels designed to be walked and photographed. And fifth, the museum lifestyle is real. Free admission changes how often you can interact with art, history, and science. But the challenges matter too. First, housing costs are a constant pressure for residents, and newcomers often feel it immediately. Second, the city can feel split between the official version of DC and the everyday neighborhood version, and it can take time to find the side that fits you. Third, the work culture in many circles is ambitious and intense, which can be inspiring but also exhausting. Fourth, as a visitor, you may underestimate distances. The mall looks simple on a map, but it can be a long, tiring walk if you try to do it all in one day. And fifth, DC's best experiences often require planning, timed museum entries at certain places, restaurant reservations, and smart timing to avoid crowds. So here is the final verdict. Washington, D.C. is absolutely worth visiting, and in many ways it is one of the best value major cities in the United States for sightseeing, because so much of what people come to see is free. If you build your trip around the mall, the Smithsonian museums, and neighborhood walks, you can have a world-class experience without constantly paying entrance fees. Is it worth living? For the right person, yes, especially if you are here for career access and you love the idea of living in a city where culture is part of ordinary life. But it is not underrated when it comes to cost. You pay for the location, the network, and the convenience, and you need to be honest with yourself about whether that trade-off fits your life. Overrated or underrated? DC is underrated as a lifestyle city. People think it is only politics and field trips, but once you give it a few days, once you eat like a local, ride the metro like you belong, and explore beyond the postcard angles, you realize DC has a real vibe. It is calm when it needs to be, powerful when it wants to be, and surprisingly human when you stop treating it like a monument museum.